What do the Dalai Lama, surfing, and mindfulness have in common? It sounds like the setup to a strange riddle, right? But stick with me. Picture this. I'm living in this tiny surf town on the Pacific coast of Costa Rica. It's a warm, sunny afternoon, and I'm riding my beat-up ATV down a bumpy dirt road. I glance over my shoulder, and I see the lush jungle spilling out onto the beach. It's one of those moments when you stop and think to yourself, how is this my life? I was on my way to meet my surf instructor at what the locals call the secret spot. We had a routine. At the end of every lesson, I'd ride my final wave all the way to shore, and my instructor caught the next one. But that day was different. The waves were relentless. My heart pounded as I got closer to shore. I thought I was safe when I reached the sand, but in an instant, a massive wave surged from behind, yanking my surfboard back and slamming it into the left side of my head. Everything went dark. Underwater, flashes of my life began playing like a movie in my mind. It was as if I was watching my life from this outside perspective with a sudden clarity around what truly mattered. What truly mattered. I later learned that I had experienced something called a life review, a well-documented phenomenon in near-death experiences. Dr. Bruce Grayson, a leading expert in the field, found that at least 30% of people who have these experiences report something similar. His research shows how these experiences also bring profound clarity about purpose and leave a transformative impact. And for me, that's exactly what it did. There was my life before the accident and my life after. And from that day forward, I just knew I couldn't ignore my purpose any longer. So I first became aware of my purpose back in 2013 during my first ever guided meditation. At the end of the session, we wrote letters to ourselves. Honestly, I didn't really overthink it. I just picked up the pen and I let the words flow. Here's what I wrote. Dear one, this is what I have to say to you. You need to use this time to figure out how to start changing the lives of young children. This will ultimately make your life fulfilled. As I read those words back, I was a little confused. Change the lives of young children? I was working at a top advertising agency in New York City. Wasn't that my dream? That meditation had awakened something deep within me. It was a realization that my purpose was to help children. But I didn't exactly follow that call right away. Instead, I did what I thought I was supposed to do. I got married, I built my career, and I kept telling myself, I'll pursue my purpose someday. On the outside, I seemed happy, successful. I was living the typical life of a 20-something in New York City. But on the inside, it was a different story. I was consumed by anxiety and disconnected from myself. The truth is, I had absolutely no idea who I was. Moving to Los Angeles a few years later gave me that space to slow down. But that feeling, it didn't go away. Eventually, I had to face the truth. I was living a life that just didn't feel like my own. Something had to change. The hardest but the bravest decision that I ever made was to leave my marriage. I didn't have a clear vision of what lay ahead, just this deep feeling in my gut that I had to step away. One night, as I was packing up my things, my dog dropped a folded piece of paper at my feet. It was the letter from that meditation years ago. And as if the message wasn't clear enough, he had bitten a hole directly through the words, "Start changing the lives of young children." I was absolutely shocked. Not only was this a reminder of that purpose that I had set aside years ago, but it felt like confirmation that I was on the right path. The day I moved out was the same day that LA went to lockdown. I found myself alone in the midst of a global pandemic and a divorce. I began searching for answers outside of myself, trying nearly every healing practice that I could find. And that's when I realized I was learning something that I had never been taught as a child: how to navigate my inner world. And I know I'm not alone. How many of us grew up without these tools? How many of us are still learning how to navigate our emotions as adults? This sparked a question in me. What if children were given these tools from the start? Emotional intelligence, which is the ability to understand and to manage our emotions, isn't just another skill that we can learn. It's the foundation for how we interact with the world, how we respond to challenges, and how we create meaningful lives. And that's when my mission became clear: to build strong children rather than repair broken adults. This mission became my North Star. It gave me the strength to keep going when the future was uncertain. For me, courage is feeling the fear and doing it anyway. And I did just that, over and over again. In 2023, I moved to Costa Rica without a clear plan. Everyone in my life thought I was crazy, but deep down, I just knew I had to trust my intuition. I put everything I owned in storage, and I moved to the jungle without knowing if I would ever return to LA. Just 1 month later, the surf accident happened. My recovery, both physical and emotional, was hands down the most challenging time of my life. When I was finally cleared to return to the US, I cycled through therapies, medications, and countless doctors. I couldn't work. I could barely even take care of myself. It was in that darkness that I turned to mindfulness to cope with the trauma and the lasting effects of my concussion. And that's when it hit me. This is how we can teach kids emotional intelligence. When people hear me talk about mindfulness, they often picture kids sitting cross-legged and silently meditating, but that's not what it's about. It's about being present and accepting your experiences without judgment. It's about creating space in your mind so that you can respond to challenges instead of reacting to them. Imagine a child who feels angry and frustrated. They learn to pause, take a deep breath, and notice what they're feeling inside their body. Maybe they shake out their hands to release the tension, or they count to 3 before speaking. But over time, these practices become automatic. Big feelings start to lose their grip. And suddenly, that child can think clearly, communicate better, and navigate challenges with more ease. Now imagine a world where every child grows up with these tools. A world where mindfulness is taught in the classroom just as naturally as math or reading. Modern research supports this vision. Dr. Joe Dispenza, a neuroscience researcher who specializes in the mind-body connection, conducted a 10-week study on meditation's effects in elementary school children. The findings showed that just 5 minutes of meditation a day increased emotional regulation, improved school performance, and reduced behavioral difficulties across the board. But what happens when we neglect emotional development in schools? The statistics are staggering. According to the National Institute of Health, nearly 20% of children in the US today struggle with mental, emotional, or behavioral disorders. Suicide among high school children has risen by over 40% in the last 15 years. And mental health challenges are now the leading cause of death and disability in this age group. It's time to rethink how we're supporting children's emotional education before crisis becomes the norm. And the good news is, it doesn't take a massive effort to create change. As the founder of We Are Saplings, I see firsthand how even the simplest practices can bring calm to a class of overstimulated children. I want to share with you today a simple but powerful breathing exercise that I teach kids. It's called Smell the Flower, Blow Out the Candle. We're going to do it together. Here's how it works. Everyone sit up tall with your back straight. and hold up both your pointer fingers. Okay, I want you to take a deep breath in through your nose and imagine you're smelling a beautiful flower. And now gently exhale through your mouth as if you're blowing out a candle. Smell the flower. Blow out the candle. One more. Smell the flower and blow out the candle. Do you feel a difference in your body? Practicing this for just a few minutes a day can help create a mindfulness habit that transforms a child's life. So today, I invite you to take small but intentional actions. Have open conversations about emotions with the children in your lives. Normalize mindfulness practices in your home. If you're a parent, advocate for integrating mindfulness into the curriculum at your next PTA meeting. We must change the narrative around emotions. Teaching emotional intelligence and mindfulness in schools isn't optional. It's essential. And now here's where the Dalai Lama comes in case you were wondering. He once said, if every 8-year-old is taught meditation, we will eliminate violence from this world within 1 generation. Together, we can make that vision a reality. Thank you.